Okay, good morning. My name is Dewain Barker. I represent K-12 Blended Learning Solutions, and I'm here to moderate the session topic called Blended by Design versus Hybrid Learning. Is hybrid learning the future? We have an exceptional panel today, so I would like to go ahead and introduce them one by one and let them then go ahead and present their work to you, and then we'll go to the next panelist, if that's all right. First, we have April Huard. April is the Director of Education at Clonlara School, an Irish name, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where parents are integral partners in their students' learning. At Clonlara, April works with on-campus and off-campus students, as well as an amazing global team of educators. She is passionate about personalized learning, student agency, and creating cultures of growth and joy for students. April and her husband have homeschooled all 5 of their children at various points during their school years. She holds a master's in education in educational psychology from Eastern Michigan University. Please welcome April Huard.
All right, thanks, Dewain. I just want to say it's really a privilege to be here to tell you a little bit about the story of Clonlara School and a journey to hybrid education that in some ways has been a long journey and in other ways has been quite recent. If I can make the slides go, we'll be all set. I don't know. Aha. So believe it or not, this journey to hybrid learning started in 1967 with a microschool, in a time when microschool was not even a word that anyone was saying, I don't think. Our founder, Pat Montgomery, looked around Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1967 for a school for her own 2 children and did not find what she wanted. And so she decided to start her own school during really the free school movement of the 60s. Clonlara School was founded as a place where children were respected as people, where they had autonomy and agency over their learning, and parents were invited in to be a part of that learning journey for their kids. And so Pat started teaching a few students in a house on this property. That's our campus now, but it started on this same property in a house. And she did that for about a decade. And then people started coming to her who didn't live near enough to the school to actually send their kids there, but they heard about this philosophy of trusting the child and following kids' interests, and they said, oh, can you help us do this at home? They were basically homeschooling. And of course, Pat could not say no. She said, sure. And so she started helping people do this, with their own kids, following the philosophy of Clonlara School. And so it spread around the state and then around the country, really. And we started our formal, off-campus program. It was called the Home-Based Education Program at that time, with people all over Michigan, all over the United States. For the next few decades, it continued that way, and eventually, people started coming to her from other countries. We had a big interest in Clonlara in Japan. Other countries came and said, how can we do this with students in our context, where we live, and we want to try it. And so, again, we said yes. And in 2003, our first language program was born, the Spanish program, but German, Hungarian, Portuguese, and French followed. So today we have all of those language programs. We have over 2,000 students, and they're in about 83 countries. Some of them are being advised in English, but some of them are being advised by native speakers who live all over the world. So that's kind of the big picture of Clonlara School, the big timetable. But for the purpose of this discussion, I'd like to focus in a little bit on the campus program, because that's the one that is really our true hybrid program. So our campus program, it started in 1967. This is, one of our real students. It started in 1967 as kind of a full-time program, and it continued that way really until COVID happened. Clonlara's always been really alternative in philosophy and in practice, but as far as the structure went, it was pretty typical. It was like an 8-to-3 program until 2021. And we all know what happened then. COVID impacted our staff in really difficult ways. And, we're a private school, so people are paying tuition. We don't have any choice in Michigan. It's a non-choice state. And so we really decided just to close for 1 year. It was a really hard decision. But in hindsight, we can see that it gave us the opportunity to really step back and think deeply about what we wanted for our campus program, what we thought the people of Ann Arbor needed from us, so that we could serve them best. And so we did a lot of research and talking to parents and thinking about what was happening in the broader context of like work and schooling. And we decided to relaunch our campus program in 2022 as a formal hybrid program. And so we added our K-5 program in that year with just 8 students. So we did one group at a time. We have multi-age classrooms. That year we started with just 8 kids. That was really not, as you can imagine, enough to pay the teacher and to run the building that we have. But we took the risk, and we went ahead anyway because we really believed that the hybrid schedule and what we were doing at Clonlara as far as personalizing education, we felt like the world was catching up to us in that time, and we were really confident that the message would spread, that this would resonate with people, and that we would grow eventually. This year in 2025, we are fully staffed for K-12. We have several full-time teachers and lots of part-time teachers as well. And so we have about 55 students at our campus this year. We have 2 of our rooms right now that's full. We have a waiting list, and we expect to grow, every year from now on. So some details about our hybrid program. Really our goal for this and what we did during this time of like reflecting during the year that we had off was that we wanted to think about how we could serve families the best. We really wanted to create options for them that would align with a lot of their new work schedules. They were remote sometimes now. They were at home with their kids. They had been at home with their kids. But then again, people who were homeschooling, they did want some social activities, and so we tried to put together this really unbundled schedule. We talk about people unbundling their options, but we really tried to unbundle the schedule of school so that people could build their ideal schedule for their own family and for their own students for whatever reason. And so now our daytime program runs from 9 to 2 for most kids, and we have a 8 o'clock early drop-off for parents who have to be at work. Our older high school kids stay till 3. We have a 5-day option, so if people need care for their kids all 5 days, we're there. They can pay for a 5-day school. But we also have a 3-day option. So that allows parents to homeschool on Mondays and Fridays and to be enrolled in Clonlara during the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Another thing that we decided to try after COVID was building kind of an enrichment program after those hours of 9 to 2, so that if parents are working till 5, we have classes that we offer Monday through Friday on the hour. People can choose those kind of in an a la carte way. There's even some drop-in options. And that's also a way for us to pull in the rest of the community, either the homeschool community or just the broader community of Ann Arbor, and introduce people to a different way of schooling their kids, a different philosophy. And so that's been really valuable for us. We bring in community experts, so we make lots of contacts. We have for example, we have a kiln at the school, so we always offer ceramics after school. And one thing that has surprised us about this is the open play option, which we thought, well, this could be just a place for kids to just like have unstructured playtime. It's not outcome based. There's no expectations. They are just here for a social thing. We're currently hiring another person to oversee that program because it's been so popular. Parents, and kids, they just want after school to play with their friends and be outside. We have a nice outdoor area, and so that's been a surprising outcome of the enrichment program. So why we love a hybrid model, I mean, we haven't had it that long. It's still kind of an experiment, but I think we have enough experience that we can look back now and say, what is this doing for us? Why do parents like it? Why do we like it as a school? I would say the first thing is that it really does help meet the needs of a really diverse population. Some students, especially after COVID, have had school trauma, and 5 days a week, all day, is not a possibility for them. And so it provides an entry point, the 3 days does, for kids who aren't ready for that yet. Maybe they'll never be ready for it, and it's totally fine. Maybe they have a goal to work up to the 5 days a week, and that's okay. We also have, families that travel, or kids who are interested in, music in a very high level, or athletics. And so this provides more flexibility for families and for all kinds of kids to get the schedule that meets their needs and not have to opt in to a full-time, 8 to 3 o'clock schedule. The other thing is that, and we've heard this already this weekend at some of the other sessions, but it really does allow homeschooling parents to get the best of both worlds. We found that a lot of parents, not everyone, but a lot of parents, when they were forced to homeschool their students, when they were forced to be with them, they really did realize, like, oh, I kind of like being with my kids. That's why I homeschooled, because I love being with my kids. I didn't want to give my kids up because, you just think they're not with me that long. I want to be with them. And so, for homeschooling families who want a little bit of the social thing too, we're not forcing them to make a choice between you can either homeschool full-time or you can join this program full-time and we'll have your kids, every day, all day long. And so this is really a nice option for the homeschooling families who just want to try something out like this. And then, just the data shows that it's popular. People want it, they like it. If we look at our enrollment data from before COVID, from those like maybe 5 years before, our enrollment has now grown this year to like 125% of those numbers. And so people are choosing it. We can see that people want options, and so this is one way that they can have more options for their kids. We also reach, more students, maybe 15 to 20 every quarter in our enrichment program, which for a lot of our families, that's their entry point. It's a very, low threshold, low commitment entry point to come and try out a class, from one of our experts, and then they're like, oh, maybe we'll try a 3-day program. Okay, now my kid loves it, and so let's do 5 days. So. From the data point, we can see that it is working. It's helping us, grow in the Ann Arbor area. And then I'll just end with this. Because Clonlara has the advantage of, decades of hindsight, which a lot of schools here, don't have. And in fact, the schools that were founded in the 60s when Pat was founding Clonlara School, most of them are not around. I mean, Sudbury's around, there's Summerhill in England. Most of them have faded away for one reason or another. And Clonlara, on the other hand, has been able to grow and, really expand. Pat probably never would have guessed that she was growing this 10 students in 1967 to, 2,300 students today. Well, and she's still here to see it, so she visits the campus a lot. But just thinking about, what do we think made the difference for us? Some of it was intentional. A lot of it, wasn't that intentional. Things just happened, and Pat reacted. We've always been really reacted flexibly to the opportunities that came our way. So, for example, when people started approaching Pat to help them homeschool, she could have said no. Pat almost never said no. She always took on a challenge. In fact, she took a case to the Supreme Court in Michigan, and that's why there are no regulations for homeschoolers in Michigan. People started to get pushback, when she was helping them, like, you're not a teacher, you can't homeschool your students. And she said, well, yes, they can, of course. And so she took the case to the Supreme Court. So she never said no to an opportunity, really. And we try to have that same mindset, like, okay, we see this need, just like closing and opening as a hybrid school, we see this need for families for more flexibility, or we see this need in this country, and could we start something there? Or we see this need from schools who need to partner with somebody for the accreditation. And so we have lots of initiatives and things going on that we've always tried to react flexibly. Flexibility and agility are our core values, two of our core values, and we really are serious about those. But at the same time, we have a mission that we're really serious about. It is really our North Star, and we kind of test every opportunity that comes along against this mission. And if something comes along that doesn't allow us to personalize education, which is really our foundation, or it takes away the autonomy of kids, or it takes away the joy, from learning, then we say no. Even if it seems like, it could be great for us, for the bottom line or something like that. And we've done that before. And so new things have to align with our mission. Otherwise, they won't be successful. And then the last thing I'll say is that we've really, especially as a hybrid school, learned to recognize an ecosystem of learning and give up the idea that learning only happens in our building, during school hours. We can think about, all the experiences that kids have and really recognize the learning that happens all the time, whether we want to recognize it or not, it's happening. Kids are learning all the time. And so we've developed a model called full circle learning that helps us recognize that learning that happens in the child's whole ecosystem. And we know that our job is really just to recognize that learning, encourage it, and then capture it, with our full circle learning model. And that's all.
Great job, Amber. Thank you. Our next panelist is Amy McGrath. Amy is Vice President at Arizona State University and CEO of ASU Preparatory Academies and ASU Prep Global, where she leads ASU's K-12 strategy. Her team serve 15,000 plus students worldwide through innovative charter schools and global partnerships that expand early college pathways, accelerate student success, and pilot new learning models with districts and ministries of education. By bringing ASU's research and innovation into K-12, Amy focuses on practical results, such as more students earning college credit in high school, stronger transitions to post-secondary education, and greater economic mobility, all while building scalable models that other systems can adopt. Please welcome Amy McGrath.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Dewain. Thanks for having us. You kind of covered it. That we're doing quite a bit at ASU, which that's what ASU does. And it's also really special to be in the room with a lot of familiar faces, especially since we're talking about partnership. I'll just point out a couple people. I know Julie Young is here, who was the founder of Florida Virtual School and started this journey with me at Arizona State University many moons ago. Lisette, I'm looking at you as part of our Micro School Fellowship. Brent Bushy, who's going to help us quarterback an application in Oklahoma, and I'm just manifesting that. So lots of people here who are doing really great work in this space. And so Arizona State University started a network of innovative public charter schools in 2008. I joined late 2016. It got big fast, and for lots of reasons, including just a vision to see how we can really anchor to the charter of ASU, which is to elevate outcomes, but also not just about who we exclude, but who we include and how we measure their success. And so we have 5 campuses around the Phoenix area and about 15 other footprints that we'll talk about post-COVID, when parents had quite a bit of a demand of, we want more than just your comprehensive K-12 school. We want to design our own day. And so we said yes a lot, and we've got several different models through partnerships that we'll kind of go through. And one of them that is highlighted was born, it's the Levitt Lab, which we'll talk a little bit about, but that was really born from post-COVID when Sal Khan reached out and said, hey, I'd really like to figure out how to start an online school together that's much different than what we're seeing out there. And in the spirit of yes, we said, let's try it. We designed something that was really special, Khan's team and ASU Prep. And so we have Khan World School, powered by ASU Prep, and that is a mastery-based online model that has been extraordinary in the area of outcomes for students, 4X and 5X in math and reading, respectively, year over year, of really high aptitude students that were coming in, and we continued to accelerate them really by unencumbering them from a traditional schedule, which when you think, oh, you're fully online, it's pretty easy to disrupt that. It really was rethinking everything from they didn't have a grade level, they were a very interdependent community of learners that spent time debating in Socratic seminar, rethinking the entire experience, as well as the role of what is, quote, the teacher. And so we think about adults and how they support kids in much different ways, and that's even how we recruit talent. So our teacher role is a guide, and those guides really help to Sherpa the students through with Socratic seminar and advisory and pretty prolific, as you can imagine, with Arizona State University college outcomes and pathways into what their career opportunities can look like. So within that Khan World School, did a lot of work with a remarkable team that Matt Spengler is also part of, but several designers from the Radical Innovation for Social Change Center out of the University of Chicago with Stephen Levitt, And he was a part of program evaluation of KWS, which was pretty cool because if ASU says that the model we're doing is good, it's like, okay, but can somebody else validate the work that we're doing? And his team was a part of that. And he really just felt like he had a moral and social responsibility to continue this work and to really catalyze, take what we learned on a fully online model and bring it in person. And so we co-designed a model that it launched about 6 weeks ago. So I don't know how long, it's end of July. In Arizona, we start school way too early. You all are doing it better here. And we started ASU Prep Tempe, empowered by the Levitt Lab, and it's been a pretty amazing experience there where the students are focusing for a couple hours on core. Again, it's rethinking the schedules, the staff, and the credit rules. And where our kids are about 2 hours a day are working on their core learning and adaptive platforms that could be third party, could be ASU Prep, could be Khan Academy. It kind of depends on the playlist that the student needs. They're tied to a guide or a house, and that guide really helps them set goals. And then it's all about engagement and joy and wonder. And so trying to get the students on these passion paths by giving them respect for time, giving them certainly a dose of requirements that they have to hit in terms of what their goals look like on a weekly, monthly basis. But if they're tracking on those goals, then we allow them to drive how they spend their time. We do that in in-depth explorations, which are a really powerful kind of project-based learning on steroids, but the kids get a chance to leverage the community, leverage Arizona State University and all the opportunity to kind of work on big problems, pitch companies, and they're working on that either on their own or with peers, and they spend an extraordinary amount of time doing that as well. Socratic Seminar is core, it's a pillar to what we do, and it worked really well at the Con World School, and it's something that our students at the Levitt Lab do, especially right now, just engaging in dialogue in a respectful way. And then there's wonder sessions, which are not graded, and it's just a time to get excited about topics that are of interest. And our team at the Radical Innovation for Social Change has built out that kind of course atlas map and has open sourced a bunch of these wonder sessions, which is something we can share as well. And those have been really great because we survey the kids a lot. Do you like this? Is this cool? Is this lame? And they give us really authentic feedback. and so that's a little bit about the Levitt Lab, and it's beautiful. It's a wonderful model that we're really proud of. But it's you notice that I didn't lean in a ton on the technology. It's really about the human connection. And we'll talk about this, and I'll be brief because I think a lot of what we're talking about is, we use these words like hybrid and blended, and you immediately go to the structure of that. And those are enablers, but it's certainly ancillary, and it's more just allowing there to be adults that have the time and the acumen to figure out how to help students guide and navigate the complexities of what school looks like. And right now, there's just so many things. There's so much bureaucracy, there's so much paperwork, and so we're hoping that technology just allows the teachers to actually have more human connection. And so that's what we're designing the models around, and we're seeing that in beautiful ways at the Levitt Lab. And so just as Dewain said, ASU Prep has a whole bunch of different ways to learn, and that's the question that we start with, which is to our families, to our parents, to our kids, how do you want to learn? And then it's our responsibility as the adults, as the designers, to have an array of options that are clear, that can help support the student, not just on their learning style, but what their socioeconomic needs are, what their transportation needs are, all of the logistics to make sure. So at ASU Prep, we have a whole lot of different models, certainly in the Phoenix area, but then through partnership, which is where we see much more of our volume around the country, because again, ASU is kind of everywhere, so ASU Prep on the K-12 side follows that powerful engine of innovation, and then we build models around that.
Great job, Amy. Our final panelist is Matt Spengler. Matt is the founder and executive director of the Blueprint Schools Network, a national education nonprofit organization. Matt has been involved in school reform for over 30 years as a teacher, leadership coach, and as the founding principal at Met West High School in Oakland, California. Prior to Blueprint, Matt worked for Big Picture Learning to launch new small schools across the country. Matt holds an AB from Harvard University and a Master of Education from the Harvard Graduate School of Education's Urban Superintendent's Program. He is in his 9th year as a school committee member for Needham Public Schools in Massachusetts. Matt, please welcome Matt.
Thank you, Dewain. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. I was going to launch into Blueprint, but this morning's opening session was an interesting moment. 30 years ago, I began my teaching career with an emergency credential at LAUSD at Jefferson High School, the same place where this morning got to hear about all the incredible innovations and change and growth. And at the time, it made me think back. I was there for 6 years, loved teaching. We had some great folks, but the school would have received an F. At the time, Jefferson was continually 51 out of 52 high schools in LAUSD. And I remember rummaging around the beautiful Art Deco library, right, old school, and I'm looking through all the old files, and I come across like a student parent handbook from 1949. And look through it, and it is the exact same bell schedule that I was teaching however many years later, right? Period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 42, 43 minutes apiece. And so I think back to the Jefferson experience a lot, and I think that really launched me to really look for places to change how schools operate, and have been drawn and have sought programs and experiences that have students at the center of school design or school change and system movement. And so Blueprint, we're a nonprofit organization. We've been around for 15 years now. We actually launched as a whole school turnaround organization based on charter school research that came from Ed Labs here at Harvard University that really looked to see what was separating high-performing schools from the rest of the pack. And so we've done a number of things over the last 15 years. We've been a school turnaround partner. We actually operated, which was a crazy decision. I'm not sure we'd do it again, but we operated a level 5 school here in Massachusetts for 3 years. And right now, we do a ton of work. We actually run a Blueprint Math Fellows program. So we have full-time AmeriCorps tutors embedded in schools around the country. Student goes to the regular math class. They come to our 4-to-1 small tutoring group, and a lot of those folks become teachers, which is kind of cool and unexpected. And our mission is fairly broad. It's about promoting educational equity and changing life outcomes. And so what we try to do is keep an eye out for opportunities to make impact. And our board president is Dr. Stephen Levitt, and he begins talking about the work with Con and says, I want to design a high school, and I want to make it awesome and different and break down a lot of those structures and barriers and focus on student interests and pursuing passions and all those amazing things that transform our young folks. And so I said, I'm in, like Blueprint's in. How do we help? And so we began looking for a landing spot to get started, and I didn't even know how it happened. I guess through Con. But I have to say, having started a number of schools around the country over many, many years, it's been an incredible partnership. And I think, we're not even at 100 days of the Levitt Lab, but it is off to a really solid start because it's got so much support and history and background. So it's good to be here today and talk more about what's possible for kids in the future.
Great, thank you, Matt. Today, I represent college simulated learning, and we started back in the early 1990s, and when we began, there were only 2 hybrid options. Today, there are 4. So when I was asked to help moderate a panel about is hybrid learning the future, I was excited because it is continuing to grow and expand. Quick point in K-12 education. Our title today is Blended by Design is Hybrid Learning the Future. Blended learning and hybrid learning, when brought together, usually involve 2 different perspectives that should be considered. And we happen to have both perspectives represented on today's panel. One perspective is when blended learning is primary. The other is when hybrid learning is primary. When blended learning is primary, the focus is on technology and online learning. Since hybrid addresses the location for learning, it is just one of many locations or options where blended learning can occur. When hybrid learning is primary, the focus is on the location of learning, typically school and home, especially younger grades, parent involvement. From this perspective, blended learning is simply an option, and parents and teachers decide when and if to bring online learning into the picture. So to recap, when blended learning is primary, hybrid is optional. When hybrid learning is primary, blended is optional. So to get to the first question for the panel today, we want to tackle the main question before us. So whether blended learning is primary for you or not, is hybrid learning the future? And please explain from your perspective. Who wants to go first?
I'll start.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
So I have strong opinions on this. Hybrid learning is just the better default. I think it's emphasizes the unencumbering of the humans to be able to have more control of their time, to be able to focus on the things that matter, which is really allowing the students to have flexibility and respect of their own time, and then using the technology, so interblended learning, using the technology to be able to rethink all the things that kind of constrain a regular school day. So I think adults post-COVID would agree as well, certainly that hybrid is the better default for just in terms of what's comfortable and what makes sense. And so it's really challenged. I think, generally school designers have been trying to figure this out and break the system for a while, and it continues to be incredibly hard. But since we're now building models like April's been doing for decades and decades, but now you're seeing more of the proliferation of these micro schools, and we're designing from this small place as opposed to trying within large, massive systems to break down the master schedule. We're seeing a lot of really beautiful, bright spots around the country. So I agree that hybrid it's not the fad, it's the demand, and it's how we have to be responsive to how kids are living their lives, how adults are expecting to work. And blended it should be a duh. That has to be in everything that every learning environment needs to be activated by some type of, enabled rather by some type of technology. And so for hybrid at ASU Prep, it's again that question of how do you want to learn? And so most of the time that we definitely have kids that come in 5 days a week, but at ASU Prep, the 5th day is optional network-wide across every one of our models, so that if the kids have the means to be able to learn from home or go do a project somewhere, and we have a ton of options to go interview a faculty member or to do a lunch and learn, then they can do that. And that sort of is an underpinning of what has allowed us as a network of public charter schools to call ourselves fully hybrid. And then, of course, that goes all the way to where we have students that are 100% at home, so anywhere in between.
Anybody else?
I'll just agree with Amy, what she said about the demand. That's really what we're seeing, like in our local context in Ann Arbor, that we feel like, during COVID, parents got a glimpse into their kids' education that maybe they never had before, and now they feel more empowered than ever to choose something different for their kids. A lot of them are working at home, a couple days a week. They want their kids' schedule to match that. And so I think that this is going to become more and more of a popular option for families. And, for us and our philosophy at Clonlara, we're really interested in kids learning how to plan their own projects and, designing their own learning experiences, so they don't need to be with us 5 days a week. They can do a lot of that, and they even choose, Khan Academy maybe, when they're home on Mondays and Fridays to do something different, which is totally fine. But, as we said before, just breaking down that idea that you have to be in a class every hour, 5 days a week in order to get, the content that you're supposed to get is just not true. And so the more that we break that idea down, I think the more flexible we're going to be, and parents, we do see the demand. Parents are really wanting more options for their kids, the ability to build a schedule that matches their lifestyle and their family values, and so that's what we're trying to provide.
So I think we're all on the same page. I'll speak to the high school. I'm on my third teenager, and I would say the hybrid model is directly aligned to what they want. They want to be independent. They want to make choices. They don't want to be hovered over by another adult. They want to be able to choose what they want to do. They want to pursue something and not be bound to it for 8 months or a year or 2 years. And they want to be able to change. And they want to move at their own pace. And they don't want to be in a classroom where they have to feel like maybe they're being held back or too afraid to ask questions because everyone else is ahead. So it just seems like, at least for the teenagers I know and have worked with over the years, the hybrid approach is directly aligned with where they are as people. And I think this is, we see this, I think at the Levitt lab, we see it in all over the place. But that's why, it's very exciting to get more and more of this around. But go ahead.
One more thought just that Matt made me think about is I think rethinking every role within an educational institution is incredibly important to hybridizing your environment. And so at ASU, our Teachers College has a next education workforce model where it's a redistribution of talent more on the medical side of things. You might have a master that over content, but then you can bring in various different kind of subcategory roles to help support the student. And that includes high-dose tutoring. That includes various ways that we can put students on college pathways. You can have paras in different ways. And so that's another, I think, critical aspect is that if you're rethinking the master schedule, the role of the adult, and the credit rules, then you're kind of able to build something much freer, as opposed to starting with the master schedule being so constrained and locked in, and then building something that you'd find in a 1949 handbook.
Thank you. All right, one more question for the panel, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. Where's the balance? There's a growing concern about student disengagement resulting from the overuse of students' time online. There's also a movement to ban student cell phone use in schools, and there are concerns that students will instead start using their online learning tools for communication. And AI is also expected to revolutionize education, but there are pros and cons for the use of AI. So where's the balance so students can efficiently learn, but also have meaningful, successful relationships? Go ahead, Amy.
I'll go after you.
This is such a hot topic. We actually ask our students this in Socratic Seminar all the time. There's so much emphasis on AI, and there should be. There absolutely is. But there's also so much immediate hope and promise that it's going to deliver all these crazy outcomes, and increasing the data centers and increasing the infrastructure. And so what we're building actually is all around the human. And again, I'm more or less just pointing to the fact that, that we pay a great deal of attention, but not necessarily the teachers who are or the guides, the adults who are with the students, around the research and what's working and making sure that emergent technology is available. And you'll find it saturated in our models, but not explicitly. It is something that, again, is ancillary enough to help the students and help the administrators of the models be able to rethink how the adults are spending their time. So I think human connection is going to continue to be pervasive. It has to be. If anything, I think we'll see the pendulum swing to, and then there are some really great models that that we're all watching influencers talk about regularly about how technology, you don't even need a teacher anymore. I am a teacher, and I don't, I take offense to that. No, no, teaching cannot look the same, and you can't be the guardian of information anymore. So it's all rethought, but you need human connection. As a mom of 3 kids, as kids are trying to figure out, just deep depression, and at ASU Prep, what we're really thinking about certainly is post-secondary success, but it's economic mobility. And so it's creating genuine, agile kids that know how to navigate this crazy world, and that's socially, politically, and they're going to need the academic rigor, and they have to have they have to hit the standards for us to be able to move them on. And so we're a mastery base, and they're in progress until they do. So we're extremely focused on outcomes, but we're also pretty diehard about the qualitative side. And so we're using technology to make things more fun, and we're putting the onus on the kids, especially as they get into 6th through 12th grade, is how do you want to spend your time? Kind of to Matt's point, actually, and I have teenagers as well, they know a lot more than the adults do. And we also require our kids, and when I say they know a lot more than the adults do, of course they think that, but whenever you allow the kids to really drive some of the design of what their school day looks like, you get that buy-in and you get a different level of engagement as opposed to this constant sort of authoritarian model. But truly, the idea of having students in the driver's seat is not new. It's just how to deliver on it and how to expect adults to pivot and change when their kids are bored. And we do a lot of performance-based ratings on our kids, or on our teachers rather, on are their kids happy? And their classroom evaluations and all of the things that we've been doing for years and years have shifted quite a bit to ask the kids if rate your teacher. And we do believe that a responsibility is on the adults to engage their kids. And sometimes whenever you're hiring in K-12 education, you get content experts that are obsessed with their content. And we're really trying to make people obsessed with their kids and their kids' learning and their kids' outcomes. And when you shift the incentive around, are your kids liking your content, that's very different than are you delivering the content at standard. It's just very, very different way to expect the learning experience during the day.
We're not primarily an online program. Even our students who are in our off-campus program are mostly self-designing their projects. They can often choose an online course if they want to. In fact, we contract with 2 online providers, so all of our students have that option. But even so, this is something that we think about a lot at our campus because we want to really leverage technology to help us achieve our goals. And our main goal for students, I've said this before, is to help them learn how to learn. And we also really value 6 competencies that we use for our assessment and evaluation. One of them is content, so of course that's important, but we also want kids to develop, communication, collaboration, creative thinking, critical thinking, and confidence. And so we have an evaluation rubric that includes all of those things. And at our campus, a lot of those kinds of things happen in a social way. We do have an emphasis on attachment. That's our first priority with kids, whether they're in our off-campus or our campus program. We really believe in self-determination theory, and that relationship piece is important to us. And then the competency piece and the autonomy piece, sometimes that can look like online options. For example, we have multi-age classrooms. We have 7th through 12th grade together this year. I expect as that grows, we'll have to split that. But in math, they're all at a different place. We could have 5 different levels, in one group. And so we are using Khan Academy to help kids really personalize that and move at their own pace, either slower or faster. They could do more than one course in a year if they wanted to. But that frees up our teacher too, talking about, teacher roles, to really help and guide students and also plan projects that are authentic and meaningful for students. And so it really, we can really leverage, some of the technology and, being online to help us accomplish our goals. And I think that's really what we have to do is test, is this helping us reach the goals that we have for our particular students? And so in that case, being online can be great. We don't believe that kids should be online all day, and we really, try to balance that very carefully so that we're not going in one direction or the other too much.
Thanks. I don't know what the balance is. Right? It depends on the model. Depends, but we do look for what is the purpose, what are the outcomes. I'll take your math example for our math fellows. Right, depending what the district uses, we do have students go to ALEX or IXL or some sort of independent work, and we found out pretty quickly that kids get stuck and that they actually can't navigate it. Many kids cannot navigate those systems on their own. And so, but you put someone who may want to become a teacher one day with a little bit of training and link it to some good one-on-one tutoring or 4-on-1 tutoring, and it's a real catalyst for leveraging that technology in a way that can help. Also, kids can see how the connection between effort and result, right? So we use that also as a motivational piece. I think where the Levitt Lab's concerned, I think you're right. It's there, but it's not central. And I think what it's done, at least for the model in these early days, is help free up some time for students to do the wonder sessions or spend more time on their own personal in-depth exploration or read a novel they want to read, right? So I think the purpose and leveraging it to actually open up other opportunities during the school day and school year seems to be working initially, but still early days.
Thanks, Matt. We have time for some questions from the audience, and we have a microphone in the very back. Dan, if you would.
Hi, thank you. I'm a homeschooling parent and a teacher as well. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of the transition from homeschooling to college, and with flexibility and student choice, how do you advise students and their families like the right classes to take and how to prioritize their time to get into or at least apply and have that goal of attending the college that they want to go to?
I can start. Okay, this is something that our academic advisors do every day for our students, and it always starts with the students' goals. Like, what are your plans? What do you want to do? And then we can build a transcript that meets those goals. And so it's the college advising piece is built into what we offer in our advising, whether you're on campus or off campus. So if a student comes and says, I want to go to Harvard, which we've had students go to Harvard, your plan and your transcript is going to look a lot different than if you say, my dad owns a business and I want to join the business, or I'm going to join the military. And so, part of personalizing for kids includes considering their post-secondary plans. We never want to shut doors for kids. We always want to keep them open. But we also trust that parents and kids have an idea of what they want to do. Our model is very unique. So, for example, you have to take 3 credits of science, just like every school, but we don't require biology, chemistry, and physics. If you have a goal to do this certain thing, we have a lot of kids who are really interested in horses and they're doing equine biology or equine studies. That's fine if that meets your goal. Of course, we always say, like, hey, if you decide later you want to go to Harvard, this is probably not going to be your best, choices. But we advise and then we let them choose. This meets my goal. These are my interests. We know that kids are going to learn more, and the learning is going to be more meaningful if it's something that they chose. That they're like, this is where I really want to, spend my time and my effort. And so it's always a balance, really, between what they tell us, and they might change their mind, and so then we have to be, as adaptive as possible and make changes if we need to. But we trust them that they're going to follow the path that makes the most sense for them.
Okay. We have a microphone for the recording purposes. Jan, if you'll turn to front. We'll try to get around everybody.
Thank you for that. This is actually feeding off the other questions. So I homeschooled my 4 children, but I'm also a teacher and a researcher. And one of the biggest problems I found, so I am in Arizona. One of my children could not get into ASU because he hadn't completed the core competencies for science. And so, I support homeschooling, and I support the flexible way that we can give education to our children. But for those students who have to have the matriculation requirements for their state, backward design, thinking what their goals are, but how do we match that with what the state wants us to do?
I'll just say what everyone's probably thinking. What? They didn't get into ASU? No. It's really upset. So Arizona State University has anybody who breaches or hits the Arizona Board of Regents compliance, which is the core competencies, then they're accepted, which philosophically I hardcore believe in, because that's where it is not whom you exclude but whom you include. And so to your point, and also I think how you responded, which is so I We are a unapologetic college-going model, but not every one of our kids are going to go to college. We just have to prepare them to be in position A, to do whatever that they want to do to pursue their dreams. And we still believe that the university pathway today is going to help them with that road to economic mobility. 97% of the students that we serve locally are free and reduced lunch. That said, I think you have to, as a homeschool parent, and there needs to be more clear education for families, because we do see that. The question in the back, one of the beautiful things about a homeschool student that we see, that we're following some research on, is how high EQ and actually how they're able to thrive and navigate in a college setting in remarkable ways. But we are having homeschool kids that come to us from informal learning models that do not have the required competencies, and that's a dangerous place. So I don't have an answer for you, because some of that's the regulatory framework, and I think there's a ton that's being changed on that front. But the education out to the constituents, the stakeholders that are choosing that path, has to be extremely clear, because there are still those major rules as it relates to, there's a baseline that you have to have in order to have access to college.
We had an early hand in the very, very back, Jan, by the door.
Uh-oh, I know him, so he may not.
Then we come to the front.
Good morning, guys. We have an exciting new hybrid and virtual law in Texas. Excited to bring these models to our state, but some of the pushback we experienced in trying to pass this new legislation that brings in these flexible models was this concept that, oh, this is cute and nice for wealthy families, many of whom have one of the two parents at home that are able to have kids at home 2-3 times a week, but it's never going to work for low-income families or families who have both parents working full-time. And I guess first is, what's your response to that? Mm-hmm. And the second is, what are some of the creative ways you've seen that kids are still able to not be at school in these hybrid models that don't just look like them sitting at home?
Mm-hmm. I can go. So this is one reason why we have a 5-day option as well, because we recognize a purely hybrid model won't work for everyone. There's the other side of that too, which is the cost. As I mentioned, Michigan is a no-choice state, so there's no help for families at all. We are a private school that charges tuition. This is our constant tension. How can we make this available, to more kids? How can we keep our costs as low as possible? As Eric mentioned yesterday, hybrid teachers in private schools get paid much less. We all take a lower salary because we're very mission aligned. But we're trying our best to make this available to everyone. We started a sliding scale tuition this year, which was our first time, and we're actively looking for donors. So if anybody here feels like this is something they're passionate about, I'll talk to you later. Because we do want everyone to be able to experience it. We think this is like a great way to learn for lots and lots of kids, and we know that we price people out sometimes, which is really hard for us. But as far as the scheduling piece, that's why we have an 8 o'clock, drop off. We have the whole day. We have a 2 o'clock, a 3 o'clock, a 4 o'clock class that you can opt into, because we know that, that's a barrier for some people. They can't be at home with their kids. They can't find another place for them to be. And so just as a school, we try to be as flexible as possible with families' schedules.
I appreciate that comment, Dee, and I applaud Texas for making this more broadly available in a new, I think, less stringent regulatory framework. I think you have to design for belonging. You have to know, and I'm so excited. The work that we do is public, and it is on a $7,700 per pupil funding. So we're designing these models in fully sustainable, and so we're always looking for partners to help. But I think the responsibility is on the designers to build something that's prudent and accessible, and is thinking about their stakeholders and from a belonging perspective. So knowing that we have the majority of the students that we serve, as I stated earlier, almost 100% of them have a need for transportation, for food, for all sorts of different social services that come with school, and so you have to design for that. But I think that when you're designing for variance, and what Superintendent Carvalho said is, it's not, choice isn't a political, or choice is a requirement. You have to have choices in how you are going to serve your students. And so I think the big challenge for us as as designers and opportunity designers is how to figure out all of the array of assets and putting it together in a meaningful way that allows for belonging, so knowing who you're going to serve and where you're going to serve. And so that's why some of these models are not replicable everywhere. You have to really understand the communities that you're embedded in and build models that are going to be powerful for that community. And so I just appreciate that, because there's no average when you're building these models. We have to build for variance, and it's an incredible challenge as an educator to figure out how to meet the needs of the student, and not just be flippant about how totally unconstrained, come learn with us in this hippie model. Like, no, you actually have a responsibility to ensure that these students are positioned for post-secondary success. But then it requires you to look out. Usually it's very hard to do it without partnering with, there's so many people in this room that I've directly partnered with to say, hey, what are you doing that's working well, and bringing it. And one of the questions I think Dewain had asked in our kind of prep session is like, what do I do? Like, how do you start? What's like one thing that you can do? And I would just challenge you to think about, there's 3 buckets in which you can, in whichever one that you have the most, that you can press in for more autonomy, and it's around the role of the adults, so the role of the teacher. What small thing can you do to change that? The role of, what is the master schedule? Can you even add 45 to 60 minutes of Socratic seminar on top of whatever you're doing, or inside or in replacement of? Because there's a ton of research about what that does. And then the credit rules. Challenge yourself around mastery learning. Look into what competency-based can do to really help unleash and allow students, some to just get on the treadmill and sprint, and then some to have much more needed intervention and scaffolding. And if you just think of those 3 categories, then you'll be able to infuse what hybrid learning really should be.
Our time is up, but I would like to quickly make 2 points to address the last comment, if I can. Decades of research has consistently demonstrated that parental involvement has a significant impact on a student's education. So it's incumbent upon us to do what we can to expand those options. In addition, a recent Ed Choice poll indicated that 30% of parents, representing 15 million boys and girls in the public school system, would prefer a hybrid option if it were available. All right? So we'll close with that. Thank y'all for coming.
Yes. Yes. No,